The giant station floated in the darkness of space, circling around Titan like a metal moon. Inside the main hall, hundreds of alien species gathered together. Some had scales, others had fur, and many looked nothing like anything found on Earth. Among them stood a human engineer who wore a simple black suit. His hands were sweating. Was 28 years old, and this was the biggest moment of his life. He stood beside Ambassador, an older woman who had spent decades trying to get humanity a seat at the Galactic Council. Today was the day they would finally ask for full membership. "Remember," whispered to him, "stay calm no matter what they say. We've waited 50 years for this." Nodded, he looked around the massive chamber. The ceiling stretched so high he could barely see it. Floating platforms held the representatives of different alien empires. Some of these civilizations had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humanity had only managed to leave their solar system 70 years ago. A deep voice echoed through the hall. The council recognizes the human delegation. Stepped forward. His heart was pounding. He held a data pad that contained humanity's achievements, everything they had built, everything they had learned. He was about to speak when he heard laughter. It came from one of the highest platforms. Looked up and saw a young alien sitting on a floating throne. The creature had blue skin that seemed to shimmer with light. He wore robes made of something that looked like liquid metal. Despite his young appearance, he radiated authority. "Humans," the young alien said, his voice dripping with amusement. "The council wastes time on humans." Ambassador touched his arm in warning. "That's Prince," she whispered, "the heir to the Empire. He's only 17, but his vote counts for 12 systems." Prince stood up and the entire chamber fell silent. "I have studied these creatures," he announced. "They call their faster-than-light technology advanced, but they did not invent it. They found it in ruins on their fourth planet. They it like children tracing a drawing." Some of the aliens in the chamber made sounds that might have been agreement. Others remained silent. Felt anger rising in his chest but squeezed his arm harder. He stayed quiet. "Their industrial capacity is laughable," continued. "Their largest shipbuilding facility produces in 1 year what my empire produces in a single day. Their weapons are primitive. Their energy production is barely enough to power their own worlds." The prince's eyes fixed on. Even from a distance, that gaze felt cold and cruel. "And this one," said, pointing directly at, "this is their representative. A monkey playing with tools it does not understand. Tell me, human, can you even comprehend the mathematics that power your own ships?" The chamber went completely silent. Every eye turned too. This was a direct insult that could not be ignored. Took a deep breath. He thought about the years he had spent studying, the nights he stayed awake reading reports about other civilizations, the simple fact that humans had survived and grown despite having so little. "I can," said simply. His voice was steady. "I designed the modified drive system on our diplomatic vessel, the one that brought us here." Laughed again. "Modified? You mean you made small changes to technology you barely understand? That is not innovation, that is imitation." "Then let us prove ourselves," said. The words came out before he could stop them. Grabbed his arm, "No." But it was too late. His expression changed from amused to interested. "Prove yourselves how?" "The trials of innovation," said. "Isn't that how new species demonstrate their worth to the council?" A murmur went through the chamber. The trials were legendary. They were a series of challenges where species had to show their technological and strategic abilities. Most species failed. Some lost ships and crew members trying. Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "The trials. You want to compete in the trials." He looked around at the other council members. "This primitive species wants to compete against civilizations that have mastered science for." "Yes," said firmly. The prince's smile grew wider. "I accept your challenge, human. But know this, When you fail, and you will fail, humanity will be banned from requesting council membership for 100 of your years. Do you accept these terms?" Looked at Ambassador, her face was pale. She had worked her entire life for this moment, and he was gambling it all away. But she looked into his eyes and saw something there. Determination, faith, hope. She gave him the smallest nod. "We accept," said. Clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Let the trials begin in 3 days. Prepare yourselves, humans. I will personally ensure the challenges are appropriate for your level." The way he said appropriate made it clear he meant the opposite. He was going to make the trials as hard as possible. As the council session ended, other alien delegates approached. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked like they were already planning his funeral. One elderly alien with 6 arms touched his shoulder. "Young human," the alien said softly, "you are very brave, or very foolish, perhaps both. Prince has never been defeated. His pride will not allow him to let you succeed." "Then we'll have to do the impossible," replied. Later in their quarters, Ambassador paced back and forth. "Do you understand what you've done? We had a chance at provisional membership. Now we might lose everything." "We already had nothing," said quietly. "Provisional membership would mean waiting another 50 years for a full vote. By then, other species will have taken all the good trade routes and resources. This was our only real chance." Stopped packing. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled just a little. "You remind me why I never gave up on humanity. We've always been best when our backs are against the wall." "What do we do now?" asked. "Now," sat down and pulled out a data pad. "Now we assemble a team. We prepare. And we show that arrogant prince that humans didn't survive Earth by giving up when things got difficult." Nodded. 3 days. 3 days to prepare for challenges that would determine humanity's future among the stars. 3 days to prove that being young and small didn't mean being weak. Outside their window, the stars shined in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. Billions of humans who didn't even know their fate was being decided in this cold metal station. Made a silent promise to all of them. He would not fail, he could not fail. The trials were coming, and humanity would show the galaxy what humans did best: survive. The trial chamber was enormous. It took up an entire section of the station, with viewing platforms rising in circles around a central work area. Thousands of aliens had gathered to watch. News of the human challenge had spread across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see the primitives fail. Stood with his team in the preparation area. Besides him were 2 other humans. Sung was a former military pilot with short gray hair and steady hands. Was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She was young, only 25, but she had 3 doctoral degrees. "Nervous?" Sung asked, checking the equipment they had been given. "Terrified," admitted. "Good," Sung said with a slight smile. "Means you're taking this seriously." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a moon covered in orange and red clouds. The atmosphere looked violent and poisonous. Prince's voice boomed through the speakers. "The first trial is simple. Before you is data on moon designation T447. It has a methane-based atmosphere with sulfur storms. The temperature ranges from -200 to +300 degrees. Nothing can live there. Your task, make it livable. You have 72 hours. The other competing teams looked confident. Counted 6 teams total. One was from the Empire, led by engineers who had built entire planets from asteroids. Another team was from the Collective, masters of genetic engineering. Each team had technology that looked like magic compared to human tools. "You will use only the materials provided in the fabrication units," continued. "No outside help. No communication with your begin." A countdown timer appeared. 72 hours, 4,320 minutes, every second counted. The team immediately started building massive atmospheric processors. The machines would suck in the poisonous air and convert it to oxygen through quantum-level molecular transformation. It was brute force, but it would work. The team began creating synthetic organisms designed to survive in extreme conditions. These biofactories would slowly convert the moon's chemistry over time. The team stood still for a moment, just watching the data screens. "We can't compete with their technology," said quietly. "Those atmospheric processors would take us years to build with what we have." "Then we don't compete with their technology," replied. He was studying the moon's composition carefully. "We use ours differently." "What are you thinking?" Sung asked. Pointed at a section of the data. "Look at the methane levels, and here, the sulfur compounds. Everyone is trying to remove them or convert them." "That's the point, isn't it?" said. "You can't breathe methane." "No," said slowly. "But what if we don't remove it? What if we use it?" He pulled up chemical formulas on his data pad. "On Earth, we have organisms that live in places that should kill them. Deep ocean vents with boiling sulfur water, frozen Antarctic lakes. They survive by using the environment, not fighting it." His eyes went wide. "You want to create a cascade ecosystem." "Exactly," said. "We introduce simple bacteria that can break down the methane. Those bacteria produce waste that feeds slightly more complex organisms. Those organisms produce waste that can support simple plants. Each stage makes the environment a little more friendly for the next stage." "That would take decades to terraform the moon," Sung pointed out. "Normally, yes," agreed. "But we can speed it up. Chemical catalysts to accelerate the bacterial growth. Mechanical filtration systems to concentrate the useful byproducts. Nothing fancy, just basic engineering." From the viewing platform above, heard Prince's mocking laugh. "The humans stand around talking while others work. Already they fall behind." Ignored him. "You handle the biological side. Use the extremophile samples from Earth we brought. Sung, work on the mechanical systems, simple filters and pumps, nothing complex. I'll design the catalyst injection system." They got to work. Hours passed. The team had already built 3 huge atmospheric processors. The machines hummed with power, each one using enough energy to run a small city. They had released millions of their synthetic organisms into simulated test environments. The human team worked with much simpler tools. Cultivated bacteria in small containers. Sung built basic mechanical pumps from metal and plastic. Mixed chemicals together like a student in a laboratory class. From above, aliens whispered and pointed. Some laughed. The humans looked like children playing with toys compared to the advanced technology around them. "This is embarrassing," one alien delegate said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why did we allow this species to compete?" Ambassador sat in the viewing area, her hands clenched tight. She wanted to defend, but the rules said she could not interfere. 24 hours passed. The team was testing their atmospheric processors at full power. The organisms were multiplying rapidly. Other teams showed impressive progress. The humans were still working on what looked like small containers of mud and basic machinery. Made another announcement. 48 hours remain. I hope the humans have a plan because I see nothing but primitive chemistry experiments. But was smiling now. "It's working," he said, showing his data pad to and Sung. "The first stage bacteria are thriving. Look at the conversion rate." "That's 3 times faster than I calculated," said amazed. "How?" "The methane concentration is higher than on Earth," explained. "More food for them. They're reproducing faster." "If the first stage works this well," Sung said, "then the cascade effect will be stronger than we thought." They worked faster now, filled with new energy. Designed injection points that would spread their solution across the moon's surface. Prepared the next stages of organisms. Sung built a network of simple pipes and filters. 50 hours passed. The atmospheric processors were running at full capacity, converting the moon's atmosphere. But they were using enormous amounts of energy. Their power systems were already at 70% capacity, and they had only processed 30% of the atmosphere. The organisms were working, but slower than expected. The harsh environment was killing many of them before they could reproduce. The human team activated their system. It did not look impressive. Simple metal pipes pushed bacterial cultures into the moon's soil and atmosphere. Chemical catalysts sprayed in gentle mists. Basic filters circulated and concentrated the useful compounds. But something remarkable started happening. The bacteria consumed the methane at an incredible rate. They produced compounds that fed the second-stage organisms. Those organisms produced waste that enriched the soil. Simple algae began growing in protected pools. The algae produced oxygen as a byproduct. Each stage fed into the next stage in a chain reaction. The system was self-sustaining and self-accelerating. 58 hours after the trial began, pressed a button. "We're done." Silence fell over the chamber. "Done?" His voice sounded skeptical. "Impossible. No one finishes the terraforming trial in under 60 hours. "Check the readings," said calmly. The judges examined the data from the simulated moon. Their expressions, those who had expressions, showed shock. The moon's atmosphere was changing rapidly. Methane levels were dropping. Oxygen levels were rising. The temperature was stabilizing. And it was all happening without massive energy input. The system was feeding itself, growing stronger with each passing minute. "The solution is crude," one judge said carefully, "but effective and remarkably efficient in terms of energy usage." "Crude," snapped. "It is primitive. They used bacteria and simple chemicals." "They used what worked," another judge replied. "The trial did not specify the method, only the result. The humans have successfully created a self-sustaining terraforming system." The team finished 2 hours later, but their processors required constant energy input. The team finished 3 hours after that, but their organisms needed careful monitoring to survive. The human solution, simple as it was, worked better than either. It required no external power. It maintained itself, and it would continue to improve the moon's environment for years to come. His face showed his anger, but he kept his voice controlled. "They passed the first trial, barely, but luck will not carry them through the second trial." Looked up at the prince and said nothing, but inside he felt a small spark of hope. They had done the impossible once. Maybe they could do it again. The second trial began 2 days later. Had barely slept. His mind kept running through possible scenarios, trying to prepare for whatever challenge would throw at them next. The trial chamber had been reconfigured into a massive simulation arena. Holographic displays showed a colony world surrounded by space. The planet looked peaceful with blue oceans and green continents. Appeared on the central platform, his shimmering robes reflecting the light from 1,000 displays. His expression was cold. The amusement from the first trial was gone, replaced by something harder. "The second trial tests tactical thinking," he announced. "Each team will defend a colony from an invasion force. You will have limited resources, limited time. The invasion fleet is designed to overwhelm standard defenses. Most teams fail this trial." He paused and his eyes found in the crowd. "I have personally reviewed the parameters for this trial. I assure you they are fair." The way he said fair made stomach tighten. The teams took their positions at separate control stations. Each station had holographic controls and tactical displays. It looked like the bridge of a starship. "You have 1 hour to prepare your defenses," continued. "Then the invasion begins. The simulation ends when your colony is destroyed or the enemy is defeated. Begin." Sat down at the controls with Sung, and the display showed them what resources they had. 12 defense satellites, 40 fighter craft, 6 orbital platforms, and a limited amount of ammunition and energy. Not much to work with, Sung muttered. He was the military expert, so let him take the lead on positioning. Look at the enemy fleet composition, said, pulling up the data. 300 ships, heavy cruisers in the front, carriers in the middle, support vessels in the back. This is designed to break through any defense. Studied the enemy formation. It was textbook perfect, a standard military approach that had worked for thousands of civilizations. Overwhelming force applied at weak points. The other teams will try to match force with force, he said slowly. They'll position their defenses to create kill zones and try to destroy as many ships as possible before they break through. That's the correct strategy, Sung agreed, but we don't have enough firepower to make it work. Notice something on the display. The enemy fleet would pass through an asteroid field before reaching the colony. Most of the asteroids were small, not dangerous to large ships, but there were a few bigger ones marked in red. What if we don't fight them head-on? He said. The hour passed quickly. Watched the other teams set up elaborate defensive positions. The team created overlapping fields of fire from their orbital platforms. They positioned their fighters in perfect geometric formations. Every team prepared for a direct confrontation. The human team did something different. They moved most of their defensive satellites away from the colony. They sent their fighters out toward the asteroid field. Their orbital platforms began moving to unusual positions. From the viewing area, aliens murmured in confusion. "What are the humans doing?" someone asked. "They are giving up," another replied, "moving their defenses away from what they should protect." Smiled. He thought he knew what was happening. The primitives did not understand military tactics. They were making basic mistakes. The simulation began. The invasion fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 300 ships, their weapons charged and shields at maximum. The defenses opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles filled space. They destroyed 50 enemy ships in the first minute, but the enemy fleet kept coming and the ammunition was running low. They used their fighters to harass the enemy fleet, darting in and out. They destroyed 30 ships but lost half their fighters. The human defenses seemed to do nothing. Their satellites drifted near the asteroids. Their fighters stayed hidden. The orbital platforms were too far away to shoot effectively. "The humans have already lost," announced. "Their colony will be destroyed in minutes." But then Sung pressed a button. The defensive satellites that were positioned near the large asteroids fired. Not at the enemy ships, at the asteroids themselves. The asteroids exploded, breaking into thousands of fragments. The debris field expanded rapidly, right into the path of the invasion fleet. The enemy ship's shields were designed to stop weapons, not large rocks moving at orbital speeds. The first wave of ships crashed into the debris. Shields failed, hulls breached, ships broke apart. The perfect formation collapsed into chaos. "Now," said quietly. The human fighters emerged from their hiding spots. They did not attack the large cruisers. Instead, they targeted the support ships in the back, the ones that provided shield reinforcement and repairs to the main fleet. Without support, the enemy cruisers were vulnerable. The orbital platforms, positioned at strange angles, now had perfect firing lanes. They opened up on the confused enemy fleet from directions the ships had not shielded. It was not honorable combat. It was not a fair fight. It was an ambush. The enemy fleet tried to regroup, but had more surprises. The humans had programmed their remaining satellites to broadcast false signals. The enemy AI thought it was being attacked from multiple directions at once. It split its forces, trying to respond to threats that did not exist. "Impossible," whispered. This is not how warfare works." But it was working. The enemy fleet, designed to overwhelm through superior numbers and firepower, was breaking apart. Ships collided with each other trying to avoid debris. Commanders received conflicting information from the false signals. The support ships burned, leaving the cruisers without backup. 15 minutes into the simulation, the enemy fleet retreated. They had lost 200 ships. The human colony had taken no damage. The chamber fell silent. Stood up from the control station. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but he kept his expression calm. What did you do?" one of the judges asked. Sung answered, "We did what my species has done for thousands of years. We fought smarter instead of harder. Ambush, deception, psychological warfare." "These tactics are dishonorable," shouted. "You use tricks, lies. This is not civilized combat." Another judge, an old alien with gray skin, made a sound like laughter. "Prince, the trial did not specify how to defend the colony. The humans succeeded where others failed. Are we to punish them for being creative?" "Creative's voice was filled with anger. "This is not creativity, this is savagery. They fight like animals." Felt his own anger rising. "We fight to survive," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "While your empire learned warfare against equals who followed the same rules, my species learned to fight against predators, against nature, against impossible odds. We did not have the luxury of honorable combat. We had to win or die." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some aliens agreed with that the human tactics were inappropriate. Others argued that effectiveness mattered more than tradition. Finally, the head judge made a decision. The humans win this trial. Their methods, while unconventional, were within the rules, however. The judge paused and felt his heart sink. "However, we note with concern the disturbing nature of human warfare. The Council will need to consider whether a species that thinks this way should be given access to advanced technology." Wanted to argue, but Ambassador caught his eye from the viewing area. She shook her head slightly. "Not now." The other teams had mixed results. They held out for 10 minutes before their defenses collapsed. The lasted 12 minutes. Other teams fared worse. Only the humans had actually won. But instead of celebration, there was unease. The aliens looked at the human team differently now. Not as primitives to mock, but as something potentially dangerous. Descended from his platform. He walked directly to, his face twisted with fury. "You think you are clever," he said in a low voice that only could hear. "You think your primitive tricks make you special, but I promise you, the final trial will destroy you. I will personally design it to break your spirit." "Why do you hate us so much?" asked quietly. "What did we ever do to you?" His eyes flashed. "You exist. You primitives exist and dare to challenge your betters. You should be grateful we allow you to serve us, but instead you demand equality. That is your crime." He turned and walked away, his robes flowing behind him. Sung stepped up beside. "That kid has serious problems." "He's going to make the final trial impossible," said worriedly. "Then we'll do the impossible again," replied. But inside he was not so sure, was not just trying to win anymore. This had become personal. The prince wanted to crush them completely. The question was, could they survive what came next? The final trial would take place before the full Galactic Council. Every delegate from every member species would attend. This was not just a test anymore. It was a spectacle. Stood in the preparation chamber, trying to calm his racing heart. Through the wall, he could hear the crowd gathering. Thousands of voices speaking in hundreds of languages. "Nervous?" Ambassador asked, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Beyond nervous," admitted. "Whatever has planned, it won't be fair." "No," agreed. "It won't be, but remember, we've never had fair treatment. Humanity has always had to fight for every scrap of recognition. This is no different." The doors opened. Sung and walked into the council chamber. The room was even more massive than before, with viewing platforms rising like mountains on all sides. At the center was a raised stage where the teams would present. Prince stood at the highest platform looking down at them. His expression was cold and satisfied. He knew something they did not. The head judge called for silence. The final trial will test the most important quality of any civilized species, the ability to solve problems through intellect and reason. Each team will be presented with the same challenge. You will have 1 hour to prepare a solution and present it to the council. A holographic display appeared, showing a section of space at the galaxy's edge. Star systems were marked in red, indicating destruction. "The Void Plague," the judge announced. A wave of concerned murmurs swept through the chamber. Even the most arrogant species fell silent. Everyone knew about the Void Plague. "For 50 years this phenomenon has destroyed star systems," the judge continued. "It appears without warning. It consumes the energy of stars, leaving behind nothing but cold darkness. Thousands of worlds have been evacuated. Millions have died. Every attempt to stop it has failed." Felt sweat forming on his forehead. This was not a simple engineering problem. This was something that had stumped the most advanced minds in the galaxy for half a century. "Your task," the judge said, "is to propose a solution. The council will evaluate your answers based on scientific reasoning, feasibility, and creativity." Stood up, "I will present first if the council allows." The judges nodded. The prince stepped forward confidently. His presentation appeared in holographic form around him. It showed massive structures being built around stars. "The Empire proposes energy barriers," said. "We will harness the power of entire stars to create shields that the Void Plague cannot penetrate. These barriers will protect our most important systems." The presentation showed detailed calculations and simulations. The barriers would work, at least temporarily. They would buy time, even if they did not solve the problem. "The cost would be enormous," continued. "But the Empire has the resources and technology to begin construction immediately. We have already built prototype barriers around 3 star systems. They have held for 2 years. The council members nodded approvingly. It was an expensive solution, but it came from a proven empire with proven technology. Other teams presented their solutions. The proposed creating artificial stars to replace the ones that were destroyed. Another species suggested evacuating threatened systems and writing them off as lost. Each solution was practical but incomplete. Then it was humanity's turn. Walked to the center stage. His hands were empty, no fancy holographic display prepared. He had only his data pad and his words. "We have studied the data on the Void Plague," he began. His voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger. "Every civilization has tried to stop it with energy barriers, energy weapons, massive power output directed at the phenomenon." He paused and looked around the chamber. "But the plague keeps growing. In fact, it grows faster when you attack it with energy. Why?" Silence. No one had an answer. "Because you're feeding it," said simply. The chamber erupted in protests. "Ridiculous," shouted. "The Void Plague consumes stellar energy naturally. Our barriers simply redirect that energy." "No," said firmly. "Your barriers add more energy to the system. Look at your own data." He projected images from his data pad. "Every system where you've built barriers, the plague has grown by 20% within 18 months. You're making it stronger." A judge leaned forward. "Explain your reasoning, human." Pulled up more data. "On Earth, we have wildfires. The more fuel you give a fire, the bigger it grows. The natural instinct is to fight fire with water, with dirt, with force. But sometimes the best solution is the opposite. Remove the fuel. Let it starve." He showed his calculations. The Void Plague is not destroying stars. It's feeding on energy, any energy. The more you throw at it, the more it consumes. Your barriers are not protection. They're feeding stations. "Then what is your solution?" the head judge asked. "We create dead zones," said. We use gravity manipulation and dimensional mathematics to create areas of space where energy cannot flow normally. Not barriers that contain energy, but voids that reject it. He showed the mathematics on his screen. They were complex equations involving black hole physics and dimensional theory, areas where humanity had done significant research because Earth scientists had studied black holes extensively. By creating these dead zones around threatened systems, we starve the plague. It cannot feed, so it cannot grow. Eventually, it dissipates. Laughed, but it sounded forced. Dimensional mathematics, gravity manipulation, these are advanced fields that require centuries of study. Humans barely understand faster-than-light travel, and you claim to have solved dimensional physics. We did not solve it, said calmly. We learned it from studying black holes near our solar system. When you have a dangerous phenomenon right next door, you study it carefully. We've been working on this mathematics for 200 years. Prove it, demanded. Show that your theory works. I can demonstrate with a small-scale simulation, said, if the council allows. The judges conferred briefly, then nodded. Technicians brought equipment to the stage. They created a small simulation of the void plague in a contained field. It was tiny, but it behaved the same way, consuming energy that was introduced to it. When first, I will show that the barrier works. He activated an energy barrier around the simulated plague. For a few seconds, it held. Then the plague consumed the barrier's energy and grew larger. Stepped forward. He entered his calculations into the simulation controls. A dead zone formed around the plague, an area where energy flow was disrupted at the quantum level. The plague touched the dead zone and recoiled. It tried to feed, but there was nothing to consume. Slowly, over the course of 30 seconds, the plague began to shrink. Then it disappeared completely. The chamber fell absolutely silent. It worked, a judge said, sounding shocked. The phenomenon dissipated. His face had gone pale. This is impossible. The humans must have. They must have stolen this research from somewhere. From where? Asked, turning to face the prince. You said yourself that every advanced civilization has failed to solve this problem. If we stole it, we stole from nobody. The prince's hands clenched into fists. You primitives cannot possibly have discovered something that our greatest minds missed. Why not? Asked quietly. Because you think we're stupid, because we're young. He looked up at the thousands of delegates watching. My species has spent our entire existence fighting to survive. We lived on a world that tried to kill us. Ice ages, plagues, predators, natural disasters. We did not have the luxury of growing slowly and safely like many of you. We had to adapt or die. He gestured to the simulation. You all tried to overpower the plague because that's what worked for you before. You have energy to spare, so you throw energy at problems. But we humans never had that luxury. We learned to understand our problems, to redirect them, to use them. Stepped forward. Life on Earth succeeds by finding balance, not through conquest. Our entire biosphere is built on cycles. Energy flows, death feeds life, nothing is wasted. We applied that same thinking here. Stood frozen, his expression a mixture of shock and rage. His entire worldview was crumbling. These primitives, these creatures he had mocked, had solved a problem that had stumped the galaxy. I demand a recount, shouted. I demand an investigation. They must have cheated somehow. But the head judge shook their head slowly. Prince, the humans have presented a valid solution backed by mathematics and proven in demonstration. There is no evidence of cheating. Then I invoke my right as royalty. His voice was desperate now. I challenge the human representative to a battle of wills, single combat. The chamber gasped. The battle of wills was an ancient tradition, a mental contest using neural interfaces. It was dangerous, sometimes fatal, and it could not be refused. Ambassador stood up in the viewing area. You cannot. I accept, said, cutting her off. No, shouted. The neural interface is designed for alien biology. It could kill you. Looked at her and smiled sadly. We've already shown we can think differently. Maybe that's what I need. He turned to, when do we begin? Two technicians brought the neural interface equipment to the stage. The devices looked like silver crowns with thin wires extending from them. They would connect directly to the brain and create a shared mental space where the two competitors would face each other. This is madness, Ambassador said, grabbing his arm. The interface was not made for human neurology. Your brain might not survive. I know, said softly, but if I refuse, humanity loses everything. Made sure of that by invoking the ancient right. The council cannot deny him. Sung stepped closer. What happens in there, in the battle of wills? One of the judges explained. The two minds are connected. They will experience each other's thoughts, memories, and mental strength. The one who can withstand the pressure wins. The one who breaks often does not recover. His face was pale. This is not worth it. We can try again in 100 years. No, interrupted gently. Humanity has waited long enough. Earth has waited long enough. This ends today, one way or another. He walked to the center of the stage, was already there, the interface crown on his head. The prince's expression was filled with confidence and anger. I will break you, said quietly. I will show everyone what humans really are, weak, primitive, inferior. And when you are broken, your species will never be allowed to join the council. Said nothing. He sat down across from the prince. A technician carefully placed the interface crown on his head. The metal felt cold against his skin. Are both participants ready? The head judge asked. Yes, said immediately. Took a deep breath. Yes. Then let the battle of wills begin. The technician activated the interface. Pain shot through his head, sharp and intense. His vision went white, then dark, then filled with strange colors that did not exist in normal space. He felt himself falling through layers of consciousness. Then he was somewhere else. It was not a physical place. It was a mental landscape, a shared created by the neural interface. Stood on a flat plain that stretched in all directions. The sky above was filled with stars. Across from him stood Prince, but different. Here in the mental space, the prince appeared larger, more imposing. His form glowed with power and authority. Welcome to my domain, human, his voice echoed from everywhere at once. Here, you will face the truth of what you are. The prince raised his hand. Suddenly was hit with images, memories, a childhood of luxury, servants who bowed at his approach, teachers who praised his every word, palaces that stretched for miles, power that shaped entire worlds with a gesture. The weight of it pressed down on. This was what knew absolute authority, unquestioned superiority, the certainty that he was better than everyone else. This is my life, said. This is what I am. Royalty, power, perfection. What are you compared to this? A creature from a primitive world stumbling in the dark. Felt himself getting smaller under the pressure. Was right, how could a human compare to this? They were nothing, insignificant. No. Forced himself to stand straight. You want to show me who you are, then I'll show you who I am. He pushed back, and suddenly was drowning in memories. A child growing up in the slums of Seoul, watching the stars and dreaming of touching them. Studying by candlelight because the power was cut off again. Working 3 jobs to pay for university. Failing. Getting back up. Trying again. Reading about the Galactic Council and knowing that humanity was seen as inferior. Watching the news as human diplomats were laughed at, rejected, dismissed year after year. The anger at being told he was not good enough, the frustration of watching his species struggle, the determination to prove them all wrong. But also the beauty of Earth, sunsets over the ocean, the first time he saw snow, his mother's smile, the taste of food shared with friends, music, art, love, joy, pain, all the complex, messy, beautiful emotions of being human. And then the darkness, war, famine, disease, the centuries when humanity almost destroyed itself, the nuclear fires, the dying oceans, the poisoned air. But also the recovery, the slow, painful climb back from the brink, the decision to be better, to do better, to learn from mistakes. Every failure that taught a lesson, every loss that built strength, every struggle that forged determination. "This is what I am," said, his voice stronger now. "I am someone who has failed 1,000 times and stood up 1,001. I am someone who comes from a species that almost destroyed itself but chose to survive. We did not have your luxury, your power, your easy path. We had to fight for everything." Staggered under the weight of human history, he had never known hunger, never known failure, never known what it meant to struggle against impossible odds. The prince tried to push back with his own power, but stood firm. "You mock us for being primitive," continued. "But you know what? We're not ashamed of where we came from. Every mistake we made taught us something. Every time we fell, we learned how to get back up. Can you say the same?" Images of Earth flooded the mental space. Cities being built, science being discovered, art being created, not by gods or kings but by ordinary people working together. A mother teaching her child to read, a scientist staying up all night to solve a problem, a farmer coaxing life from difficult soil, a teacher who never gave up on a struggling student. Billions of small acts of courage and persistence, adding up to something greater. Tried to retreat, but the connection held him. He was forced to experience human history, human emotion, human perseverance. For someone who had never known hardship, it was overwhelming. "You want to know why we never give up?" asked. "Because giving up means dying. We did not have the luxury of your easy life. We had to earn every scrap of progress, and that made us strong in ways you cannot understand." The mental landscape began to crack, was breaking. "Stop," the prince whispered. "Please stop." But could not stop. The interface was designed for this, one mind overwhelming the other. If he held back now, he would lose. He showed everything, the beautiful and the terrible, the shameful and the glorious, all of human existence compressed into moments of searing intensity. The Holocaust, the civil rights movement, the space race, the climate wars, the recovery, the first contact. Every time humanity faced extinction and chose to survive. Screamed, it was a sound of pure mental anguish. His perfect, ordered worldview shattered under the weight of human experience. He had never known pain like this, never known loss, never known what it meant to truly struggle. His mental form collapsed. In the physical world, slumped in his chair. Blood trickled from his nose. Medical teams rushed forward. His eyes opened. The crown was removed from his head. He felt exhausted, drained, but alive. He had won. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species cheered, others protested. The judges called for order. "The human has won the battle of wills," the head judge announced. "Prince has been defeated." Stood shakily. He looked at being carried away by medical personnel. The prince was conscious but broken, his eyes distant and empty. For a moment felt guilt. He had not wanted to hurt anyone. He had just wanted to show the truth. Hours passed. The council deliberated, waited in a side chamber with Ambassador Sung in. "You did it," said, tears in her eyes. "You actually did it." "We did it," corrected, "all of us." The call came. The council had reached a decision. They returned to the chamber. The head judge stood. "The council has voted. Humanity is granted full membership. Access to technology is approved. Your species will be welcomed as equals." Cheers erupted from the small human delegation in the viewing area. Felt tears running down his own face. 50 years of waiting, centuries of being dismissed. It was finally over. But then something unexpected happened. Prince entered the chamber. He walked slowly, supported by aides, but he was walking. His face was different, softer somehow, less arrogant. He approached. The entire chamber fell silent. I started, then stopped. He seemed to be struggling with words. I came to apologize. Blinked in surprise. In the battle of wills I saw, the prince paused. I saw things I had never imagined. I felt things I had never felt. Pain, loss, fear, but also hope, determination, love. He looked directly at. I have lived 17 years in luxury and never once truly lived. You showed me what it means to struggle, to fail, to stand back up. He bowed deeply, something a prince of the empire had never done before. I was wrong about humanity, wrong about you. I thought power made me superior, but I was just privileged. You are stronger than I ever was because you earned your strength. Did not know what to say. He had expected many things, but not this. I have a request, continued. I want to visit Earth. I want to see where you came from. I want to understand. Looked at Ambassador, who nodded slightly. Yes, said, you can visit, we'll show you. 6 months later, stood in a recovered rainforest on Earth. Birds called from the trees. Insects buzzed in the humid air. Next to him stood Prince, no longer wearing his royal robes but simple clothing that was already stained with mud. This place was dead 50 years ago, explained. Destroyed by human activity. We brought it back through careful work, plant by plant, species by species. It took decades. Touched a tree trunk gently. You destroyed it and then rebuilt it. Why? Because we learned from our mistakes, said. That's what humans do. We fail, we hurt things, we make terrible choices, but then we try to fix them, we try to do better. The prince was quiet for a long moment. I have been thinking about what I saw in the Battle of Wills, about human history. You almost destroyed yourselves so many times. Yes, agreed. But you did not. You survived. You chose to survive. Looked at him. My species never faced that choice. We grew powerful without struggle, and maybe that made us weak in other ways. Smiled. Every species has strengths and weaknesses. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. They walked deeper into the forest. The sounds of life surrounded them, life that had almost been lost but had been brought back through human stubbornness and care. Thank you, said quietly, for not holding back in the battle, for showing me the truth. It hurt, but I needed to see it. Thank you for being willing to learn, replied. Above them, through gaps in the forest canopy, stars were visible. Humanity's ships traveled between them now, carrying explorers and diplomats and dreamers to new worlds. The galaxy had finally opened its doors. And on Earth, in a recovered forest, a human and an alien prince walked together in silence, both changed by what they had learned. The battle was over. The real work of understanding was just beginning. But that thought was the most human thing of all, to never stop trying, never stop learning, never stop reaching for something better. Even when it seemed impossible.